Hi, my name is Ayon, and I'm going to go over how to create a form with Django. So the first thing you do is get Python on your computer and Django. But I'm not going to go over how to do that. There are tutorials on the internet on how to do that. But once you have Python and Django on your computer, you can go ahead and start a project. Django treats a project as a sort of a whole website. And then within that project, you can add apps, which are treated as single page views. So when you start a project in Django, it'll create a directory. In this case, I'm calling it my site, and inside that directory, there will be certain files. We'll be focusing mostly on settings.py and urls.py. And let's see what that looks like on the terminal. Okay, so with that simple command, I can now see in my desktop, it created the My Site folder, and in that folder there's manage.py and a couple files. If you look at settings.py, what you'll notice is there's a lot of configuration stuff in here. All we have to do here is when we create our app, just add it to the installed apps list. That'll tell Django that we have another app, and it can map the URLs. So now let's move on to creating an app. It's pretty simple. You just use the start app contact form, the startup command, calling my app contact form. That's going to create more files for me, and but it won't create all the files. There's two files that I will need to create myself. That'll be urls.py and the contact form model. So let's execute that command. And let's see what that gives us. Creates a folder, and inside that folder, there's a lot of configuration files. We will be focusing on views, and we'll need to create urls.py as well as the contact form model. So let's go ahead and do that. Oops. All right, let's save this file. So this will be our contact form model. So I'll name it that. And inside that file, we'll need to import forms module from Django and create a class that will have our form fields. That one inherits from form. And now we can start adding fields to it. So I'm going to add a couple text input fields, a date field, an integer field, and an email field. Adding that, it's pretty simple. You just define the property. So I created a character field for first name. Let's say we want the last name. That's will be another char field. Let's say we want that person's age. You can also get that. And let's add a birth date. And lastly, let's add their email. Let's say we want get their email. Now each one of these fields has certain values you can populate them with. So for example, the first name char field, we could label that. So Django will create labels for us. We could also define a max length for this field. Let's say we want nothing more than 100 characters. And let's say we want to define an error message, and just in case a user, goes over the max length or provides something that's not a character. We can do that with a dictionary by defining a dictionary in Python called required. And inside that required dictionary, we can add a message. Okay. And we go along and do the same for all the other fields. Say I'm not going to add an error message there. For integer field, there are two special properties. You can obviously use the label. Call it age. But it comes with a min value. Let's say we don't want anybody with a birth date of 0, so it would start at 1. And we don't want anybody with a birth date of greater than 100, because that's hard to come by. So we'll define that here. And I'll go back to datetime field in a second. For forms, for the email form, we'll label it email. And we'll also have a max length of 100. Okay, so we have our forms model, and we'll save that. We've just created our model, but now we need to have our main project application hook up to it. So to do that, we have to create a urls.py file. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll name it urls.py. And in urls.py, we'll define the URLs that will allow us to navigate to our form. So we'll import from Django URLs. We'll import path. And we'll also import from the current directory our views. URLs will map, or the urls.py file will map your URL to your views. And now we define a list called URL patterns, and in that list, we can put the patterns that we want our form to be. So I'll define an empty string, and I'll define a view. I'll call it contact form, and give it a name. Okay, we'll define another path. This one, we'll call it greeting. And it will also hook up to another view. This one will be submitted form greeting. And we'll give it the name of greeting. So with this, I've mapped URLs to views. So now we need to populate our views. We can simply open up our views file and get to work. Now, views are, I think, the most complicated part of creating a Django application. So we'll import a few things from the Django libraries. How about contrib? We'll import messages. This will allow us, when we do redirects, will allow us to print messages. And our HTTP response to redirect module. So I'll define the view. All views are handled a request object automatically by Python, so it'll be there. And we can start working on our view. So when you get a request, you can test to see if it is of a type post. If it is, we'll handle it differently. Okay. And I forgot to import our model to the view. We also need to give that to the view. Okay. So now, if we get a post request, we can instantiate the view. And this will create an empty contact form. Now, Python lets you check to see if the content of the form is valid. Pretty simple method. And if the contents are valid, then we can work with them. Let's say we want to send a message that the request was successful. And we want to pull the first name from that form. Okay. So let's actually start running this project. To start a Python project, it comes with its own lightweight server. Now to do that, you just use manage.py file, and before you actually do anything, just migrate. What that will do is it'll map SQL, all your SQL files to your models. After that, you can run a server at a port you can choose. And if we do that and navigate to your local host on Firefox, you can see the website you've created. And this is just Django showing you that your install worked successfully. Okay. So now let's talk about templates. So I've created a view, but it needs to be rendered in HTML. So to do that, we'll handle any other type of requests, like GET requests, will be handled here. For that, we use the render function, which takes a request, and then a URL of where you want to map, and then a context, which is a dictionary of key value pairs. Okay. Save that. And now let's go create a template. So in Django, you can always store your templates in a folder called templates. And inside that folder, you can create another folder called contact form that takes the name of your module. So if you look at it, it'll be contact form, templates, contact form. And inside that form, you can create your template. So let's go ahead and do that. It'll be a type HTML. And let me save it in that folder. And we'll give it the same name we gave it in the view. Now, what goes in your template? Some HTML. Python will provide you with certain things, but it will not provide you with a form, so you got to create that yourself. That's what this looks like. And we'll leave the action URL empty. Python will handle that for us. So if we pass a context, the contact form, and it exists, we'll do something. We'll iterate for every field in that contact form. And we'll get that field. So let's see if that works. Oh, I forgot one thing. So when we created a contact form model and our contact app, we actually have to go to the original settings and add that app in there. So and to get the correct name, you could always go to your apps file. And it will actually give you the class file. Okay. So now if we navigate to your local host, port 8000, contact form, you should see our contact form. Unfortunately, it was not able to connect. So there's a mistake going on somewhere. So let's see what the terminal tells us. It's telling us there's no module named contact form. So maybe I made a mistake in its naming. Yeah, definitely. Sorry about that. Thanks. Yeah.